Noisy pixel.
What's up, nerds, and welcome to What's So Good About, a video series where we dive into a game to let you know why it deserves your attention. Today we are talking about Trials of Mana, the 2020 remake of the 1995 Super Famicom release. Developed and published by Square Enix, this action RPG aims to take players back to a simpler time of fantasy quests where a group of strangers team up to save the world. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the battle system. It's action-based, where you can switch between one of 3 characters who each have unique weapons and skills. During a battle, players can use light and strong attacks in combination with each other to perform some pretty flashy moves. Enemies also have their own abilities that highlight on the field in red. What's cool here is that there's a counter in the middle of the red dot that kind of grows, and you're allowed to see how much time you have until you need to dodge out of the way. This goes for all different forms of attacks, whether it be from an enemy or a boss, which I thought was a nice touch. Speaking of enemies, there is a wide variety of enemies that you'll encounter throughout the game. Sure, you have some color swaps here and there, but there's also some late game enemies that kind of pop up and surprised me throughout the adventure. As you unlock classes, you are given a choice between light and dark routes. This changes the costume of the characters and gives you a chance to personalize your party a little more. As you can see from the footage, I chose to go the harem route and have 3 female characters in my party, and I must say that Angela and Reese's costumes can get pretty spicy for all you waifu lovers out there. As you level up, you'll also unlock new passive skills that can be customized and unlocked using training points. As you earn these passive skills, you are only allowed to equip 2 every class that you unlock, so by the end of the game, you'll have 4 to 6 passive abilities available to you. Passive abilities allow you to equip things like earn 5 MP every 5 seconds, or sacrifice 20 defense for 20 attack, stuff like that. It's pretty interesting, and it lets you customize your characters the way you want, and it allows you to do things to fit your playstyle. Magic in the game can also be gained this way, and to use it in battle, you'll have to use this ring system that the game has, where you press down on the D-pad and it shows you what magic you have available to you. Each character has different magical abilities that they can use. I found myself using Reese a lot as my main attacker, even though my main protagonist was Angela, just because Angela was receiving all of these sweet magical abilities and I didn't want to deal with them, so I gave the AI that responsibility and just customized in the strategy menu how I wanted her to use magic and how often. One great thing about Trials of Mana that I feel is lost in more recent modern RPGs is that exploration is rewarded, even though the game is pretty linear. You'll see a star on the map that tells you where your goal is every moment of gameplay, but if you just travel to the left or right or on any individual path, you'll usually find something like a new item or new weapon, or even this little cactus that you have hiding around the map that gives you more abilities. Just the game constantly reinforces that exploration is the way to unlock the most that it has to offer. And this also shows up in the towns, where if you talk to certain people, you'll unlock special passive abilities, which is really cool if you think about it, because it gives you a reason to actually explore the town instead of just pass through it. The dungeon design in Trials of Mana is pretty simplistic when you think about it, because all the maps resemble each other, but thankfully the game does have these gimmicks that they throw in to several maps, like sand or fire or poison, just to mix things up, because without that you would just have different theme dungeons that would all really just look the same. So they do go the extra mile to make it feel like you're actually traveling to these places and progressing through the levels. There's also this level where there's a natural disaster happening throughout the entire stage, and the area just shakes every now and then as a volcano almost erupts. It's stuff like that that really stand out to me and make this adventure worth going on, instead of just simply copying and pasting wall textures and stuff. There's actually things to kind of look at and different environments to see here, and that's something that's also found in the early Secret of Mana games, which I appreciate them taking the time to implement into this remake. I should also take a second to talk about the waifus and husbandos in the game, because each character is pretty nice to look at if you think about it. Whether you like Angela and her very revealing costumes, or even Kevin, who likes to show his muscles most of the time, there's a little here for everyone in the eye candy department. And I was glad that the developers didn't sacrifice this side of the game, because I distinctly remember having like crushes on these sprite characters growing up, and it's interesting to see them fully realized in 3D. Although I never got to play the games growing up, I was a fan of Secret of Mana, and knowing that Seiken Densetsu 3 existed, but we never got it, always made me curious and had me searching online for sprites and just the way that it looked and played. So I did know about these characters and the story before playing Collections of Mana and Trials of Mana, and it was just interesting to see them in this light. And I feel a little validated in the sense that I had crushes on some pretty attractive waifus, so go me. Aside from that, probably one of the best features of Trials of Mana would have to be the traditional story that it tells. So long have we been catered to in the JRPG department, where we have all this action and all this stuff going on at once, that we forget about the simpler times when these people just went on a quest just because. And what's good about Trials of Mana is each of these characters have their own reason for being on the quest, and it comes off a little selfish when you think about it, because they're only saving the world because they have something to gain from it, not just because they need to save it. They're humanized in the sense that they all came together with their own selfish needs, and it just so happens that they're also very skilled in what they do, and that in fact shows their character growth throughout the adventure. It's pretty interesting to witness each of the characters' different resolves and how they are affected by the elements around them, and by the end of the story you have a grasp on why they're doing what they're doing, and it ends up having very little to do with what you probably assumed they were doing it for, which is something that I think this version of the game offers that the Super Famicom version didn't, given that this was found in the extra story content after you beat the game. Which kind of leads into another point, that I'm happy that the developers chose to not alter the base story game of what you're playing. It is very much Trials of Mana, and the story sticks relatively close to what you've played before, if you've played the Collection of Mana version. However, that added layer of content after you complete the story has some things that a lot of fans have been waiting for a very long time, and I think that it was just very important for them to get that right, and they did. So everyone who actually completes this game are in for a nice surprise, especially if you're a Mana series fan, because that does play into what this content offers. So if I was asked what's so good about the game, the bullet points would be: the battle system is traditional and simplistic, the equipable passive skills are easy to manage and vary enough to customize your character to fit your unique playstyle. The use of magic in battle varies between each character, so every party created will provide different results in this category. Exploration is rewarding here. Traveling through dungeons and towns is just plain fun, and talking to NPCs gives you the chance to unlock new passive skills. The waifus, definitely have to highlight them. And lastly, the traditional story. It plays homage to classic RPG storytelling, but with a modern feel that this generation of gamers can wrap their heads around and not feel like the game is only catering towards longtime fans. And that's it for this episode of What's So Good About. If you played the game, let me know what stands out to you, whether you like it or not, or whether you agree with my points or not. I'd be happy to answer your comments below. Thank you for watching. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
It's so hot. Will we even make it?
I don't know, Harry. I really don't. Hey, watch it! Not bad.
We can take the enemy in no time.
Well fought. Stay true. Did they even bother? I was fine then. Here I go. Don't jump it.
Allow me.
Stay focused.
It's so hot. Will we even make it?
Here, rookies. Well fought. have improved greatly.